Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today, I'm covering Missing Identity and Plankton's Army, two episodes unfortunately falling into the late Season 3 pit of obscurity. Well, however obscure episodes from Season 3 can be, anyway. This is something I've been mentioning a little bit in each of my last few videos, but I really mean it. There's just something about this last bit of Season 3 that makes people not talk about these episodes. Good thing I'm here, right? As always, a thank you goes out to all of those watching today, and to everyone who's been watching the videos lately. Now, with that all out of the way, let's just get right into it. Out of the two episodes I'm reviewing today, Missing Identity is easily the one that has flown more under the radar, which is a shame because I'm against any episode fading into obscurity, even ones I don't like as much. Whether that includes this episode or not, we'll just have to wait and see. One thing I like about Missing Identity is, well, its identity. Couldn't resist. But for real, I really like the atmosphere of this episode, and y'all already know how I am about that kind of stuff. Similar to, I want to say Nasty Patty, this episode has a noir-esque feel to it, although this time it's more in tone, like SpongeBob's beginning dramatic lines rather than in visuals. Though, the beginning of this episode for sure gives us the scenery we're looking for, along with some music to set the mood. Not to mention SpongeBob making a meme of himself. I really like how this whole episode is actually just SpongeBob telling a story to the diner worker and patron, because I think that's a really neat setup. TV Tropes calls this a framing device, which I didn't know until just now when I looked it up for the script, so that's neat. I'll be putting that article in the description as per usual. I love TV Tropes. The flashback in which most of this episode takes place starts off pretty hilariously, with SpongeBob having quite the hectic morning. I really liked the little dance he does when he feeds Gary. It's super cute, and it's just little details like that I really appreciate out of this show. Like, they didn't need to include SpongeBob's little ditty here, but they did it anyway. I like that. I also find SpongeBob's curiosity about snail po to be relatable. I would never eat pet food, let me be clear about that right now, but I do wonder what it tastes like. SpongeBob takes the next step by actually tasting it, and his reaction to the snail food is hilarious. I love the cut to the snail po headquarters and some worker being like, "There's been a disturbance." I also love that at the end of the first part of this flashback, you can actually tell that SpongeBob's clothes are on backwards. I love the cut back to the present too, where we see that the people listening in are actually engaged in SpongeBob's story in some capacity, and I also like that this cut implies that SpongeBob has been acting out his story as he retells it. Makes me wonder what he's looking like to the diner worker and patron. Heading back into the flashback, I love the moment when SpongeBob figures out that his name tag, or in his perfectly dramatic fashion, his identity, is gone. I think that the hyperventilating is absolutely hilarious, and I love that SpongeBob has to break out the French to express his distress. Huh, that rhymed. Anyway, now that I'm here, what does he do in the French dub? Any French speakers in the house? Anyway, I love the whole scene that SpongeBob imagines with the robber. His catastrophizing is just too funny, and also kind of relatable since I be doing that same shit. And it's funny how it ends up with him passing out and then starting to hyperventilate yet again. I'm shocked, yet happy, that Squidward actually helps SpongeBob so quickly in this episode, though maybe this is a nod to the fact that this episode is theoretically all SpongeBob's perspective, so maybe in reality Squidward was nowhere near as helpful. We of course get a funny joke involving Squidward's ego and SpongeBob's disappearing much like Mr. Krabs in Krabbyland, so worry not. The balance of SpongeBob and Squidward's dynamic is still maintained. So, Missing Identity is able to get one more pretty funny gag in, with Patrick starting to hyperventilate just like SpongeBob, before the episode starts to slip down my sliding scale of enjoyment. While I like the recruitment of Patrick and SpongeBob's search for his name tag, the whole montage of SpongeBob retracing his steps, each with Patrick messing it up at the very end, becomes very repetitive by the end of it. Thankfully, each iteration, or reiteration, of the morning takes less and less time, which helps this problem immensely. Doesn't quite stop me from feeling frustrated like SpongeBob though, and that's only the beginning. See, things don't really get all that much better when we move to the dumpster scene. I do enjoy SpongeBob's endless kindness though, considering he doesn't seem to recognize that the people who threw him in the dumpster were huge jerks. But anyway, this dumpster scene is not that great because Patrick is once again very frustrating. First, forgetting the purpose of why they were looking in the dumpster in the first place, and then by being unable to articulate that SpongeBob's name tag is on his back because he put his shirt on backwards. It's just annoying, and this type of comedy rarely ever works for me. If you need a reminder of that, just look back to my review of Wet Painters. The ending of the flashback is kind of a non-ending, but I think it may be better this way because I have a feeling that if the flashback were to go on longer, we would have gotten one of those very upsetting endings a la The Bully. So I'll take this very abrupt ending with Mr. Krabs placing SpongeBob outside instead. I think it's kind of funnier this way too, that all of this melodrama led up to a very anticlimactic ending. It's the same kind of pulling the rug out from under us that season 3 has been loving. And besides, I find the ending to the actual episode to be much better, and more important for general enjoyment of Missing Identity anyway. I also consider this last bit of the episode to be a return to form after a few minutes of not so great material. Firstly, I like the fourth wall breaking with the waitress saying that SpongeBob managed to kill 11 minutes. Missing Identity is full of jokes like this, ones that break the fourth wall or at least ride along the edge of it, like when Patrick apologizes to the audience, or whenever SpongeBob stares at the camera. Which, speaking of that second, I absolutely love the ending of this episode. SpongeBob uses the waitress's name tag to call her by her name, but turns out she's just borrowing someone else's uniform. Given how this entire episode was about SpongeBob putting stock into thinking his name tag is his identity, is it any wonder that there's nothing he can do but look to the camera? Missing Identity is a pretty good episode. Or, I suppose that I think its ending and its beginning are excellent, but unfortunately, the middle of the episode is a bit of a slog. Well, nothing that bad, but comparatively the middle section is boring and repetitive compared to the stellar beginning and ending. It's almost enough to say that this episode is kind of a disappointment, especially considering this episode had perhaps even more of my interest than usual because of the mystery element. I adore mysteries. But still, I don't want to get too bogged down into the bad of this episode because I do quite like it. Which is why it fits nice and snug in my good tier, where it comes in with a score of 7.8 out of 10. Coming up next is Plankton's Army, which is the episode that made me realize how little Plankton appeared in this season. He was in what, 3 episodes in this season, not counting this one? It's kind of funny to think of how few appearances Plankton made in these first 3 seasons, given how he's such an integral part of the show now. Coming up very soon, though, will be in the era with him being a proper main character. Though, it would be nice if certain other main characters were actually treated as such. Sandy, Mrs. Puff, Pearl, Karen, and kinda Gary, I'm looking at y'all. Yeah, this show low-key has a misogyny problem, but that's a discussion for another day, because right now I'm going to discuss Plankton's Army. Although Plankton has of course attempted in previous episodes, this episode really feels like the beginning of the archetypal Plankton plot, as I like to call them, that we're all familiar with. And because I can do what I want, let me break down what I consider to be a Plankton plot. So first, Plankton plots typically, but not always, though these locations must be featured in some capacity, take place almost entirely in the Krusty Krab and or the Chum Bucket. Second, the major plot of the episode is Plankton trying to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. Third, Plankton actually gets close in order to have some actual tension in the episode, but then it fails in some humorous way. And yeah, those are the 3 core elements of a Plankton plot. At this point in SpongeBob SquarePants, I feel like only Plankton, the one with the exclamation point, I'm talking about the episode here, had completely fulfilled these 3 elements. So I guess really, Plankton started the trend, but Plankton's Army made it a pattern, especially considering its proximity to Season 4, which is where the pattern became commonplace. None of this has any real bearing on the review, though, so let me actually get started properly. I like the beginning of this episode with the montage of Plankton's failures over the years. I think my favorite has to be when he literally just asks for the formula politely, probably because of the subverted expectation of Plankton having a whole scheme. Which, by the way, did you know there's a whole page on the SpongeBob wiki for Plankton schemes? Fun stuff. Also, speaking of subverted expectations, I love the whole bit with the robot and how it turns out Plankton was in the dollar bill. The whole part where he doesn't know where to go from here is hilarious, and I like that Mr. Krabs is able to counter with a pretty funny joke of his own, followed by a nasty one. Makes for a very enjoyable exchange between the 2 enemies. I like how Karen basically roasts Plankton for the entirety of this episode, and that it somehow leads to there being an entire running gag of a montage of Plankton's failures. I prefer when Karen is helpful to Plankton like this, actually giving him ideas for how to successfully steal the formula. I like the synergy the 2 have. I even more prefer when Plankton actually listens to her. Plankton's failed attempt at getting some clubgoers to help him is pretty funny, and I like how it leads him to think of contacting his family. The montage of him doing just that is entertaining enough as well. Nothing special there. Plankton's Army delights in subverting expectations, as we, just like Plankton, are stunned when the door opens to reveal the most stereotypically redneck Plankton imaginable. For some reason, when typing that, I got reminded of Mel Medarda and her mother in Arcane, if any of you guys have watched that. Not that either of those characters are rednecks, I'm talking about the whole being really different from your family thing. But anyway, Plankton is pretty funny in this scene. I love how he gets so tired so fast and just snaps, but manages to regain his composure. That moment is also a funny reaction meme that I have used before and will absolutely use again. I also find it wholesome that Plankton's family is so willing to help him out. I mean, you'd think that all of these people would have lives of their own, but they all rushed over to Plankton's aid. It's sweet. And yes, Plankton does promise them rewards, but I mean, the fact that they came over in the first place is nice, considering that Plankton doesn't really talk to them outside of this. And then, of course, we get one more memorable moment in this episode with the whole Sheldon gag, which is admittedly pretty funny. I always think that I'll get tired of it at some point, but nope, it's funny every time. Unfortunately, from there, though, the episode starts to drag a little. The grass joke is not as funny as I wish it was, although Plankton's laugh has some good visuals. Even Mr. Krabs and Squidward being stuck in the toilet is like, meh. But I will say I do like the part where all the Plankton join together to form a hand and an ear, if only because Mr. Krabs being like, curse you, Plankton, your ability to join together to form a working human ear. Although, that line does leave me with some questions, like, do the people at Bikini Bottom know what humans are? I mean, there was that whole Our World line in Crabborg. Or maybe it's just because Mr. Krabs is old and well-traveled. Or maybe, just maybe, it's actually because the writers were simply making a joke and I'm overthinking it. But nah, that couldn't be it, right? The episode picks back up again once Plankton has his hands on the formula and starts reading it. The tension is wonderfully crafted here with every turn of the page, building and building all for that perfect moment, that final reveal that the most important ingredient in a Krabby Patty is Plankton. I like how the toilet magically appears by Plankton's side, too. It just makes the joke funnier. We get excellent voice acting from Mr. Lawrence in this scene, as per usual, and I love how Clem just stands there because he can't read. It's those small little touches of humor that make this show so special. Like, that definitely did not need to be in there. It wouldn't have felt like a missed joke opportunity if it wasn't, but they put it there anyway. Goes to show the skill and thoughtfulness of the writers. Plankton's army continues on with the good streak with its great ending. I do wonder where exactly SpongeBob was during the whole episode, though. And I like how Squidward hardly plays a role in this one, too. He's just there to provide audiences with the ending stinger of Mr. Krabs running home just like Plankton did, cursing Squidward's name. And it's a good way to close out the episode. And while I'm here, I did want to mention something that I've always felt about this episode, since I think it kind of connects to what I just said about SpongeBob and Squidward's minimal roles. But to me, this episode has always felt kind of empty. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I don't know. It always just felt like there was something missing in this episode. Maybe because of the few characters? I honestly don't know, and I don't really know how to describe what I'm feeling. Some kind of liminal feeling. But maybe it's just an extra weird brand of nostalgia, the kind of Sunday afternoon feeling that a lot of middle-aged SpongeBob has for me, which hopefully one day I'll have the opportunity to discuss. Bringing it all together now, Plankton's Army is a pretty good episode. It does fly under the radar a little bit, but I think that largely has to do with it being part of later season 3 and nothing about the quality of the episode. That's not to say I find this episode super amazing or anything, because I don't. Plankton's Army is good, but to me it's nothing special. I find the ending to be delightfully morbid, but that's about the only thing that really stands out here, and that's why I think this episode works best in my good tier, where it comes in with a score of 7.8 out of 10. As always, gotta close out the video with some closing thoughts of mine. Though, honestly, I don't have any. I feel like I've explained everything I feel like explaining within the reviews. That's probably because neither Missing Identity nor Plankton's Army are episodes I think very much about, and I guess that is something I could discuss, the forgettability, for lack of a better word, of the last third or 2/5 or so of Season 3. Essentially, everything past Chocolate with Nuts has this air of obscurity to it, and I don't know why. I just feel like a certain quality of the episode shifted. Not saying the episodes in this part of the season are worse, because they aren't, but it just feels like there's something different. Does anyone else feel like that? I don't know. I can't describe it at all, which is why I continue to be vague about this. Maybe it's because these episodes start to get like the season 4 feeling, probably because of like closeness of production. I really cannot tell you, and it's bothering me so badly. But yeah, if anyone has any ideas about this, please put it in the comments. I would love to talk about this. And yeah, since I can't describe it, I think I'll just end things off here. I'll see y'all in the next review, which will actually be the last special of Season 3, The Sponge Who Could Fly. I'll see y'all then.